Poll after poll, election after election, concerns about demographic change have been kicked down Whitehall and swept under the Downing Street carpets. But after a record number of illegal crossings this year, unprecedented demographic projections, and increasing concerns about the safety of women and children, have we reached a critical moment? Is the Overton window shifting, whether the government like it or not? I'm Emma Trimble, and this is GB News Originals. Now, before we get stuck in, don't forget to like and subscribe to stay up to date with all of our content. Now, here with me to discuss the future of England and the English is Peter Whittle, the founder and director of the New Culture Forum, who has been one of the loudest voices against mass migration for a very, very, very long time. Thank you so much for joining us, Peter.
It's an absolute pleasure, Emma.
Now, let's start with you, really, because you're a Londoner born and bred, and you will have seen the city change a lot over the course of your life and even just in the last decade or so. How have things changed as far as you can see?
Well, Emma, I did a documentary a while ago about moving out of London, which I did about 4 years ago now. And it's because basically it was no longer my city, it was no longer recognizably mine. I think what's interesting is that recently, this past week, we've seen a kind of fight back, if you like, from the people who churn out the usual narrative. And so we've had this thing about London actually being nothing like it's portrayed, that it's actually great, that crime is hugely down. This started off really with Fraser Nelson's piece about the country generally, which seemed to go against all people's sentient people's feelings about what's happening. But we've had it very much located on London. In answer to your question, the huge change, of course, is demographic. You mentioned my own life there. Well, actually the census is done in the year that I was born. I was born in 1961. I think that in London it was the population was something like 93% white British. By 1991, so what is that, 30 years ago more, it was something like down to about 71, 81, but still a big majority. And it was essentially after the Blair years. Now the white British population of London is 37%. That was at the last census 2021. Now, I don't know that something like that has happened in peacetime in any other city. It's without historical precedent to speed, because we're talking essentially from 1991, a generation maybe. The thing is that it's not about people being racist. It's not about people wanting London to be entirely white British. What it is, it's about a different order of things. But people who were once perfectly fine with what I call a system, a reasonable amount of migration, have really hard attitudes, because that's not what we've been seeing in London or indeed in the country. And I think one of the most important things really is that we're told that actually it was always the case.
So, Matthew Goodwin did some research for the University of Buckingham, and he found that the demographic projections, according to ONS statistics, census data as well, predicted that the white British would be a minority by 2060, and perhaps even as low as, I think it was, a third by the end of the century, with the population of, say, Muslims rising to 19%. Some people would say, well, why does this matter? It's racist to be concerned about the decline in the white British population. What would you say to that?
I think that the last statement there is absurd. Of course, it matters hugely. What is the country if it's not the people in the country? This question's been asked quite a lot, Emma. Can you have the same place with different people in it? Going right back to early this century, when Christopher Caldwell wrote a book all about it. The conclusion he came to, I think, although he was, if you like, a little bit sketchy, was that no, you couldn't. I find very interesting about this seems to escape many people is that this particular projection has been around for a long time. It's not a recent thing. It's not just Matthew Goodwin. It's been around. I think it emanated originally from the Oxford Observatory, Immigration Observatory. The point is, though, really, is that I don't know at school, but when I was at school, we were taught that basically the beginning of British history really was 1066
Mm-hmm.
and 1066 and all that, in the
Mm-hmm.
Battle of Hastings. And here we are talking about 2066, effectively, 1,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so you could take the attitude, well, we had a good innings. But the fact is, and I don't take that attitude at all, by the way. But the fact is that no, it does matter. It matters hugely. I am astonished that people are not talking about this more. I saw something online recently. It was a think tank. It's called the Equinox Project or something like that. And it was with Trevor Phillips, who's become the kind of mainstream rational voice on this, if you like, recently. And they were talking about this, and they were talking about it in this kind of way. They weren't taking issue with it or anything like that. They weren't taking issue with the figures. And I said, here you are rationally and without passion talking about essentially the end of a nation within, uh, within sort of the foreseeable future. I think it is the thing we should be talking about. I can't believe people aren't more concerned about it.
You did the most extraordinary interview with Dr. David Betts, who's an expert in civil war. He's studied civil war around the world and thinks that it's a very viable possibility given the growing sectarian politics here in the UK. Now, I listened to that interview when you put it out, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it since. And clearly, it's not just me because I've now seen talk of civil war absolutely everywhere, and we've seen this kind of emergence of people discussing issues that they wouldn't have discussed before. So talking about things like, in quite a widespread way, not just reserved for the political right, people using the term indigenous to refer to the white British population. There have been lots of debates about, what does it mean to be English in terms of your ethnicity, whether anybody can be English in the same way as anybody in a sense can be British just by virtue of their citizenship. So how do you see all of this unfolding in the future? Do you think that David Betts is right? Is that something that you're concerned about? Do you think that it's right to be looking for new terms to refer to the white British population?
I think to take the first point there, Professor Betts, you're quite right. When I did the interview with him, we got the biggest ever interview on the New Culture Forum, about 600,000 people. And since then, he's been doing the rounds, as it were. The point should be made, Emma, it's a very important one, that by talking about it does not mean to say you want to bring it on. Because that's what the left will immediately say. That's what our opponents immediately say. Even by mentioning it, you are inciting it. This is absolute rubbish, of course. Why would we not be worried about the possibility of civil convulsion in some way? I think it is the possibility. I think what is interesting is, first of all, if there were such a thing, who would it be between? Who would the goose be? When I look at what's happened recently over the past month of very peaceful local groups of people going outside hotels, I've been filming at them. We were down in Great Yarmouth, not Great Yarmouth, sorry, Bournemouth. I've been going around an awful lot. We were down in Bournemouth yesterday doing the same thing. Bournemouth, not known for being a kind of working class town, if you like, very refined, genteel. Huge changes have happened there. And people have come out, they've gone to the hotels, they're not being violent. Okay, you get the occasional person kind of attaching themselves to it, but they haven't been. They've arisen quite organically. They're not actually even, so far as I can see, related to Tommy Robinson or the United Kingdom movement or anything. They've come about. I find that I am very encouraged by that. We need it to happen everywhere. And indeed, the New Culture Forum locals groups will support people who go out and want to peacefully demonstrate. So I take great comfort from that. These people are not searching for civil war, whatever. But in answer to your question, I think for me, and many people might think this is rather an esoteric take. I think this is very much a class thing. I think that the people who, on the whole, are going out to demonstrate are working class people on the whole. By that, I do not necessarily mean, and this is the case in Epping, I don't necessarily mean white working class people who are poor. Um, Not at all. They might actually be doing quite well. What I mean is that they are people who are from a working class background at some stage or another, often who've come out of London, for example, in the case of Epping. White working class people of working class descent for whom these issues mean a lot. These are the people who are somewhere people, being good in what's his name, David Good Hughes, is it? Somewheres and
Guitar.
anywheres, good heart.
Mhm.
These are the somewhere people. I am a somewhere person. I'm from originally a working class background. I know exactly what these feelings are about. It's a belief in caring about the wider. I don't see it so much in the middle class. I think many of them recoil when they see these demonstrations. I have no evidence for that other than what I know my instincts tell me to be right. There's a sort of sense that these ghastly people, even now, what are they doing? And also not believing them particularly. So I think there's a strong class element to this. I'm not saying we're going to have a class war, but I think that there is a strong class element. Demonize white working class people, whether they are Essex people or not, and middle class people who still increasingly attack themselves to what you might call the kind of the rest is politics type of ethos.
Yeah, the Overton window seems to really have shifted. So the
Yeah,
protests that we saw outside of the migrant hotels, women, children, like women dressed in pink, very much not the kind of stereotype that the left would like to portray of the people who are objecting to this. Lots of young girls who are concerned about their safety with all of these, unaccompanied young men. Nobody knows who they are coming into the country. It's and even just recently, the people who put up all those flags around Birmingham as a sign
yeah.
of they're not being ashamed to be British. It does feel as if something has changed, because I think in the working class, anecdotally, people have felt this way for a very long time, but haven't really had the avenues to express it. And something does seem to have changed. There seems to have been some kind of watershed moment. Do you think that that's right? And if so, what do you think has changed?
Yes, I think people have lost their inhibitions, and I think quite rightly, because they've tried it the nice way. They've tried it the usual way. They've been electing governments for, I would say, what is it, 30 years now, 40 years now, basically on the hope that immigration will be brought down or limited. What have they got for that, Emma? I mean, total contempt. And you mentioned there, and I mentioned there, how the left like to portray these people. Actually, that's to limit it too much. It's not just the left, it's the establishment entirely. I can't remember a time when it felt more like we have a government or a ruling class, or call it what you want, who are actually against the majority population, who are actually working against them, to
So
the
one of
extent
the
that sometimes it seems they're actually trying to provoke something. It feels like that because they are so blatant about it. But in answer to your question, I think, and I rejoice if this is the case, people are saying, we've done it your way. We keep trying to mind our P's and Q's and speak the right way and all the rest of it. It's not working. You still hate us. You don't listen to us. So we're going to start expressing ourselves. And let's face it, putting up flags, on a street, I think one after the other on the lamppost. What is more elegant and peaceful than that? I mean, even there, I think the council is trying to come up with some cockamamie excuse as to why they should come down. Do you really think that they would make them come down if they were Palestinian flags? I don't think so somehow.
So one of the stories this week that has caused another debate is the fact that white working class children are performing the worst, only second to those from the Gypsy and Roma traveller community. And then Bridget Phillipson came out and said that this is a national disgrace. And it set about another debate about the white working class, with Rakib Hassan writing an article saying that the white working class shouldn't fall into these sort of victimhood identity politics narratives, that it's for cultural reasons and so on. And I think that many working class people do feel, white working class English people do feel aggrieved. They feel that their history is being constantly denigrated. We've just seen Clive of India, Thangam Debonair, with a very appropriate last name, saying that the statue should be removed. Do you think that the white British population are right to feel victimized in some way, or do you think that it would be wise to avoid sort of falling into those identity politics, victimhood narratives?
I think they're right to feel victimized. I just don't think they think of themselves as victims, which is a crucial point. And they certainly don't kind of exploit that. They just remove themselves from the process. I mean, I think we saw this right up to the Brexit vote, when suddenly, out of those 18 million people, came huge sections of the population who hadn't actually voted before, but felt instinctively patriotic and wanted to vote. I think it's entirely disingenuous, is a very kind of voguish word at the moment. I think it's disgraceful, actually, for any Labour minister to start talking now about the position of white working class kids, particularly boys, it has to be said. They make no pretense to even care about the people who created them, i.e., the Labour Party. When was the last time they even used the expression, only to somehow, in a rather kind of cack-handed way, try to define it, which we saw with Keir Starmer? Look, if your whole culture, which includes your schools and which certainly includes your universities, is geared towards saying why you are the source of all the world's problems, which is what it actually says, why should you have any interest in it? Why should you? The whole way in which it's a subliminal thing, in which children are taught now, particularly I take the case of, say, white working class boys. Think about it. You're toxic because you've got toxic masculinity. You might express yourself in a kind of relatively rough and ready way. That's seen as being toxic or whatever. You are white, and my God, is there a worse sin than that at the moment? You're British, hence you've just simply completely caused all the problems in the world. In other words, you are the source of shame and problems. And basically, at the same time, you look around, and when the country is on its knees and you see these people like this appalling woman, Baroness Debonair, talking about taking down a statue, she's just the kind of emblematic of it. You know this better than many people, Emma. When it comes to statues and things, this is still going on around the country. It's still, and if it hasn't been, you know, obvious, a lot of it's been internalized. That's all still going on. Your history is bad. You are bad. Basically the implication being everyone that's not you is better. So I would say that it is, of course, I want to see white working class kids do much better than they are. But I totally get why there is the situation there is. When I'm asked now by young people at school, white working class, or even just guys, do you think I should go to university? And I sort of say to them, and I never thought I would, I don't see why you should bother. I mean, your life is going to be, you're going to leave with a sense that you are bad. You're going to be blamed for everything in a kind of subconscious way. Don't submit to it and then pay a massive price for it.
Do you, given all of this, what do you think is the future of England, and particularly the future of the English?
Oh, Emma, I mean, I take a certain amount of optimism from the fact that we're even talking about Englishness, um, not through any official channels, because they detest Englishness. And I take comfort because I remember a time when Englishness was not talked about at all. And indeed, in fact, it was up to the 1990s when the flag you saw was the Union flag. Just look at the World Cup in 1966, it was the Union flag all over. By 1996, it had become the England's Cross of St. George. Um, I now call myself, and I have done for 10, 20 years, English, not British. On the airport forms and all of that, I'm English. I think there is a strong sense of identity in being English. If you keep on dumping on people enough, they will develop an edge and they will start to be much more aware. They'll think, why is it I am so considered to be so bad? Well, actually, I'm proud of that. So I do see a growth in pride in being English. It's just simply not an official thing. You're never going to see any official recognition of this at all, except for Sadiq Khan's pathetic, puny display in Trafalgar Square on St. George's Day, which is a nostalgia fest. It's a kind of nostalgia fest. It's for something that basically the assumption is it's gone, it's past, right? So we can safely celebrate it. I think that's a big mistake. But I think it's going to be tough. I think it's going to be tough because I think that a lot of this comes down to other areas like migration. I am a hardliner with migration. I think that I've thought for years that there should be a complete halt, a total halt to any further migration for quite a long period. All of these things have a bearing on the survival of the English. They just do. If we carry on like we are, it really will be 1066 to 2066. And I don't want to see that happening.
1066 to 2066 is a horrible way to end this interview.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Peter. We have been cursed by living in interesting times.
No,
thank you so much for your time today. And
Pleasure.
to you at home, don't forget to like and subscribe, comment below to let us know what you think, and don't forget to download the GB News app. We'll see you next time.